In this video tutorial, I will show you how you can install and run Moodle in a production environment on Windows Server 2012 Release 2 using Internet Information Services, or so-called IIS, as web server. And IIS comes as a part of Windows Server operating system already, together with PHP as an application server, because Moodle is written in PHP, and database. This is new installation of Windows Server, and the only thing I've done so far is I've already downloaded the packages required for installation and setup, but I will show you as we reach the point of installation of packages like PHP or database or Moodle, where to and which ones to choose. So the first thing I'm going to do is opening my server manager. If the server manager is not running for you already, you can come down to taskbar, click the server manager icon and open server manager. And the first thing I want you to do is going to local server and click on IE enhanced security configuration and turning that off for admins. I've already done that, or alternatively you can use Mozilla Firefox or Google Chrome, it's your choice. Clicking OK, and now I will be able to freely use the internet, else you will be getting security warnings from Internet Explorer. Next thing, I'm going to install IIS as a first step towards my server setup. So going to dashboard, I can either click add roles and features, or also I can access this from manage and add roles and features. It will open the same window, so you can click either. So I'm going to click add roles and features, click next, and make sure you have role based or feature based installation selected. Click next and select a server from the server pool, and in the server pool just be sure that it's your server listed here and it's selected. Click next, and from the roles I'm going to select web server IIS, and I'm going to click add features as any window pop-ups. So clicking add features here, going to click next, and from here I'm going to select two additional features from .NET Framework 3.5. Although these are not required to run Moodle, but I am going to show you as well the installation of an extension to IIS. It's called PHP Manager, that will make your work of managing and setting PHP a lot easier. So I'm going to select .NET Framework 3.5, includes .NET 2.0 and 3.0, and HTTP activation. We're going to click add features here and click next, and click next again. Now it will give me roles and services to install for the IIS. From here I'm going to keep the default settings apart from selecting one additional thing called CGI. So coming down to the list, selecting application development and selecting CGI. Now you can select as many things as you want, but selecting more things means you are opening more doors to your building. So opening more door means more security checks. Therefore only select things that you need, and don't worry about if you have already selected some additional things, because you can always come back and disable and enable things in the IIS settings. As we are here in few documents, I've seen people selecting ISAPI extension and ISAPI filters as well for Moodle installation, but I've seen Moodle working with just selecting CGI, so I'm going to leave these. If things are not working for you, you can always come back and select these two as well, but I'm going to leave that for now. Click next, and now as we are here, it could be possible that you will be seeing a yellow bar right about here showing you to define the path, in case if you have changed a directory of installation path, like for example you have installed your server using a USB drive, and while installing IIS you may have changed a USB drive to some other port. So it might ask you, all you have to do is specify an alternative path and give the source for your USB drive or DVD where your operating system installation files are. I'm going to cancel here and click install. Meanwhile, this gets installed in the background. I can as well close it. Let me take you to the Moodle website, and I'm going to show you which files to download, and as well tell you about a mistake that most people do. So opening my browser and clicking Moodle.org. And going to downloads. Moodle version 3.0.1 just got released yesterday, and I was actually waiting for this version to get released so that I can show you the working of PHP version 7, which is the latest with this version, and what speed enhancements this version has brought. Clicking on Moodle 3.01, and from here you can download the Moodle files. Now here most of the people do the same mistake I've seen, and I don't blame them, because I could have done the same mistake if I would have been installing the Moodle for the first time. So what people assume is that package to download for Windows installation is this one, Moodle installer package for Windows. As the name suggests, it's for Windows, so it's automatically assumed that this is for Windows Server environment. In fact, it's not. What these two packages for Mac OS and Windows they do is they are all in one package for testing out Moodle, or in my case what I use them for is creating courses offline and then upload to my production Moodle server. These packages come with Moodle plus all the underlying requirements that are needed to run Moodle, like the web server, the application server, which is PHP, and a database server. The good thing about this package is it runs portably. What I mean by running portably is it doesn't install anything on your computer apart from just opening the firewall ports, like port 80 for web server and port 3306 for database. So as you start this package, it will start all the servers like web server as in Apache, PHP server and database server, and will let you use Moodle, and once you stop it, everything stops. Alternatively, you can use Moodle on your server by downloading and installing something called XAMPP package. It's XAMPP, and in this package it's XAMPP server included. So what XAMPP server is, XAMPP stands for XML, Apache, MySQL, PHP and Perl. In that case, you will be installing the XAMPP server and then installing Moodle manually. And what that package does is it will install everything. So every time you start your computer, everything starts like your database server. So essentially those will be taking your system resources if you're not using Moodle all the time. So recommended package for testing on Moodle or even creating offline courses is this one. But if you are setting up a production server, then you will be downloading this one, because we will be setting up other components like web server, application server and database server separately. So it will be this package you will be downloading, not this one for production environment. The difference between TGZ and zip is a Linux operating system can understand both, but a Windows operating system by default can only understand zip unless you have a third-party program installed like WinRAR or WinZip. In that case, you will be able to unzip the TGZ package as well. So clicking download.zip will download the Moodle core files, and that we will be using to set up our Moodle. Meanwhile, let me see if our server is done. Right, installation succeeded. So all I have to do is now test out my server if everything is installed properly. So going to localhost, clicking enter, and our server is up and running. So with our web server setup, now I'm going to install PHP. And just before going to PHP page, one more thing I'm going to tell you about this package as not recommended for a production environment. This package comes with web server as Apache. Although I'm not saying that Apache is a bad server, but on a Windows platform, in my nearly 2 decades of experience, I've never seen Apache running on Windows platform in a production environment. Yes, Apache can be installed on Windows, but what I've seen is Apache being used for development purposes and not for production, because there are some Windows version that doesn't comes with any web server, like in case of Windows starter packages, Windows Home, Windows Premium, they don't come with any web server. So if you are developing websites on any of these editions, then you need a web server. So in that case, you can always install Apache. Second thing, because as I mentioned before, that every server works portably, means they are not getting installed on your machine. So the reliability of the Moodle running on this package is not as good as if you have to see with everything installed in your machine. The third thing, because Moodle is based on 3 parts: Moodle data folder, where you upload your files and photos and everything; the Moodle core files that we download from Moodle website, which are these ones; and then Moodle database. While you keep the Moodle core files in a publicly accessible drive, you keep Moodle data out of that drive so that the users cannot directly access these files. In this package, both Moodle data and Moodle core files are on the same folder, means there is a security risk. Therefore, this is not recommended for a production environment. Anyway, going to install PHP now, and for PHP I'm going to go to php.net, and the first thing you're going to notice is PHP 7.0.1 released. If you are going to use Moodle version 3.0.1 that I'm going to use now, then I will definitely recommend using PHP 7, because PHP 7 has really enhanced the performance of Moodle in terms of using less memory and rendering the page quicker as compared to previous versions of PHP. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to install PHP 5.6.16, and later on I'm going to show you how you can install PHP very easily using the PHP manager. So I'm going to go to windows.php.net/download, and from here I'm going to go to PHP 5.6 and going to install non-thread safe version 64-bit. Although prior to PHP 7 you will always see this note with 64-bit versions on Windows that they are currently experimental, but I haven't experienced any issues in terms of using a 64-bit version on Windows. So you can either install a 32-bit version or a 64-bit version, but in both cases you will be downloading a non-thread safe version, because Apache and IIS, they handle HTTP requests differently, so a different version for each server. Apart from that, you will as well see VC11. It refers to the Visual C compiler that is required to run PHP on Windows environment. Therefore, I'm going to look out for VC11 build, which is Visual Studio 2012, and I'm going to download the respective version, either 32-bit or 64-bit. I've done this already, downloading both Visual Studio 2015 and 2012, because 2015 is required for PHP 7, and I've as well downloaded the PHP versions, which I'm going to show you in a minute. Downloads, and I have VC11 64-bit and VC14 pins and Visual Studio 2015 64-bit together with PHP 5.6.16 non-thread safe 64-bit and PHP 7.0.1 non-thread safe 64-bit. I've shown you where to download these, and as well do not forget to download and install Visual Studio version 2012 for PHP 5 and 2015 for PHP 7. So now I'm going to install the Visual Studios. For that I'm going to install first Visual Studio 2012. It's 64-bit, and do make sure that you are downloading the correct version, because I've done this mistake before. While while downloading the version 64-bit for PHP and installing the version 32-bit for Visual C, and my PHP wasn't working. Now that's being done, I'm going to install the Visual Studio 2015 as well, which we are going to later use for PHP 7, and install. You can close the Server Manager dashboard if you want, because we won't be needing it anymore. And going to my downloads and going to my PHP, I've already unzipped it, and within this PHP folder I can see all the PHP files listed. So I'm going to rename this package as PHP 56. Click enter, and I'm going to rename my package of PHP 7 as PHP 7. You can name anything you want. This is just for my convenience, because once I start giving the paths, it will be easy for me to understand which version I'm referring to. And now going to C drive, I'm going to create a folder here called PHP. Just make sure you are logged in as admin, otherwise you won't be able to create any folders. Create PHP. And now within this folder I'm going to place both these files. If you are going to use just one version of PHP, you can just copy the files in that folder, but because I'm going to use more than one version, so I'm going to place these versions inside my PHP folder. If you have got more than one drive, then I will always recommend keeping the application server files on your second drive. So with my PHP files inside my PHP folder on my root drive, I'm going to open my PHP 56. I'm going to create another folder inside called temp, or you can create any folder with any name you like. Going to do the same thing with PHP 7 folder. Create here temp, and now I'm going to define environmental variables for my PHP in my Windows. So I'm going to my PC, clicking properties, click advanced system settings, and from here make sure you have advanced tab selected. Click environment variables, and from here select path, click edit, and in the end of variable value I'm going to add my path to my PHP files. So semicolon C drive colon backslash PHP backslash PHP 56 for my PHP version 5.6, semicolon C colon backslash PHP backslash PHP 7 for my PHP version 7. That's about it. Click OK. Click OK. And now I'm going to go back to my PHP folders, and I'm going to allocate permissions to the temporary folders I've created. So click temp, click properties, security, and I'm going to edit and add a username. IUSR stands for internet user, and it's a built-in account in Windows Server environment. Click check names, click OK, and I'm going to select modify as permission. Click OK. Click OK, and I'm going to do the same thing for my PHP version 7 temp folder. Click properties, security, edit, add, internet user, check names, OK, click modify, and OK. Now I'm going to set up my PHP version 5.6 manually. So I'm going to open this, and I'm going to select my php.ini production file, right click, open with, click notepad, and now I'm going to save this file as php.ini in the same directory, save as, click all files and name it php.ini. Click save, and now I'm going to make changes in this file. There are a few things that you have to do manually for the first time, so I'm going to start making changes. If you are watching video while you are setting up your server, then just follow along and start making changes in your php.ini file. So I'm going to click find command and find error_log, find, and I'm going to make changes. Now in PHP files everything is predefined, but everything comes disabled with semicolon. So all you have to do is, if you need to enable anything, just remove the semicolon, and I'm going to give a path that will be my C. This path will be different for your installation, but if you are following along and you are keeping your PHP files on a C drive with PHP 56 folder within your PHP folder, then you will be writing the same thing, but just make sure you are giving the correct path. So C:\, it will be my PHP folder, and within my PHP folder, if you remember, it was my PHP 56, and then I'm going to give path to my temp directory that I've created. I'm going to copy this path because I'm going to use this at few more places. And next thing I'm going to do is find for upload_tmp directory. And like before, all I have to do is remove the semicolon to enable this, and then give path to my temp directory. Either you can do like what I'm doing, is finding the commands, finding the settings, and then removing the semicolon and giving the proper parameters, or you can define these at the end of this document. Works like the same way. Next thing, I'm going to find session save_path, or I'm going to keep the same path here, and don't forget to remove the semicolon to enable this. Next thing, it will be extension directory. Going to look upwards, right. And this time I'm going to remove the word temp and give a path to my extension, just to show you. Extension directory comes as a part of PHP package, so here's my extension directory, and this is my path to my extension directory. Just to be assured, I'm going to give this path to my extension directory. That's fine. The next thing, I'm going to change few more settings. So I'm going to find CGI.force underscore redirect. Going to look up, right. Enable this and select here 0. This is very important. because if you see instructions as well, and it's mentioned here, you can safely turn this off from IIS. In fact, you must. So I have enabled this and turned this off by giving the setting of 0. Next thing I'm going to find is cgi.fix path info. Enable this as well by removing the semicolon. For CGI dot impersonate enable this as well. For CGI logging, enable this as well. Max underscore execution underscore time. Now a default value would be like 30 seconds, so I'm going to increase it to 300. Depending on your server hardware, maybe the setting of 30 will be fine, but just to be safe, 300 is recommended settings. And the final thing I'm going to do is give the date and time. Date.time zone. Removing the semicolon, enabling it, and then Europe, London. In my case, of course, you will be using your time zone. I'm going to save this file. Now with my php.ini file initialized, I'm going to set up my IIS. For that, once I've got my IIS installed, I will be able to find my IIS within my program files folder and pin to taskbar, so that I'm going to access it easily. Going back to my desktop and clicking my Internet Information Services icon. Going to server. And the first thing that you are going to get is this notification of installing WPI. I've seen some community members who did mention that they have installed PHP using WPI or Web Platform Installer. I won't recommend using this for the scripts are pretty old, but let me tell you a bit about what WPI is. So I'm going to click yes here, and it will take me to the website of WPI to download the package. Click free download and click run. If you have previously used something like a shared hosting environment with control panel, you must have seen a script installer called Softaculous or Fantastico or Mojo Marketplace in case of Bluehost. What they do is they make your job easier to install scripts like Moodle or WordPress or PHP, Baby or Dolphin or things like that. In case of IIS, what Microsoft has given is this WPI, Web Platform Installer. And if you're going to install anything other than Microsoft's own product like Azure services or ASP or things like that, I won't recommend that. Although I'm going to show that what this does is, now I've got my WPI installed and running. Just let me show you. If I have to write here word Moodle, press enter, and it's going to show me. So what I can do here, click add here and then install, and it will download and install all the required components like PHP and database or things like that. But if you see the date here, it's released on 28th of May 2014, and it's more than a year old because we are nearing to 2016 now. So I won't recommend it. Just let me show you one more thing. Just let me show you another thing. Clicking PHP here. So although I've got my PHP 5.6, 5.3, 5.4 here, but these versions were updated last year, and I'm not sure which version is this. Is it a 32-bit version or it's a 64-bit version? So I won't recommend using WPI for things like PHP or any other thing that is non-Microsoft. For Microsoft product like Azure or drivers for your Microsoft SQL Server, you can always use this. It will make your job easier. As I've seen plenty of very experienced IIS administrators using this as a part of their installations. Anyway, I'm going to exit this now, going back to my IIS, and I'm going to set up PHP now. So in IIS there are two different types of settings. One is server-wide settings, and then there are site-wide settings. So I have to click this small arrow and going to sites. I'm going to click default website here, and you will see almost same things available on my site as well. You see most of the things that are available on my server are available at my site level as well. So anything you set up here and add a site later on, any new website added to my sites will inherit everything that is preset here. But it gives you freedom of choosing your own individual settings for different sites. Like for example, in my server level, I have set up PHP 5 and PHP 7, while in my site I can choose different versions of PHP, and for every different site I can choose different versions of PHP. So this is how this works. So I'm going to come to my server level. The thing I'm going to do is click handler mapping, and I'm going to add module mappings here. Request path *.php. module will be my fast CGI, and I'm going to give a path to my executable that will be within my PHP. So going back to my C drive, PHP 56, going to select here executable and PHP CGI, and I'm going to name it, say, PHP 56. Click request restrictions, file or folder, verb. Either you can select all verbs or right here cat head post. Access is script. Everything looks fine here. Click OK, and it's going to give me dialog about if I want to create a fast CGI application. Click yes, and my PHP is added here. Now going back to my settings, going to click add here, PHP text of PHP, click OK, going back and clicking on default document, and now I'm going to add a document called index.php. Click OK. What default document does is, once a client computer asks for a website, then there's a list of documents inside your web server that it looks for in priority. So if I have to open my Moodle website, the first document my web server will be looking for is index.php. If it couldn't find index.php, then it will look for second document, then third, until it reaches the document which is available within the folder. So in my case, it will be index.php, and that's fine. And now I'm going to create a test file for my PHP within my web directory. So going to internet publishing, root, and going to open my notepad. PHP, PHP info, and I'm going to save this as with my www index.php, and make sure all file is selected here. Click save, and now if I see I've got index.php file here, and I'm going to test my file using my browser. So clicking here localhost. Now, as I mentioned in my default documents, that the first file my server has to look for is index.php PHP test file, but let's see, it didn't. It means I have to restart server, which I actually forgot. So setting up PHP, now I have to restart my web server, and everything goes fine. It should now open my PHP page, and voila, my PHP is now up and running. This is how you set up PHP. I've created a temp folder, given it permissions for iUser, set up my environmental variables, and I've done settings within my IIS at 3 places: handler mappings, MIME types. Although MIME types is optional, but it's a good practice to let server know what type of files it's handling, and then giving a default document. With my PHP setup, I'm going to set up my database now. So minimizing this and this. Now I'm going to set up and install my database. For database, I'm going to choose MariaDB, and meanwhile our installation is being done, I'm going to as well tell you why I chose MariaDB over other databases. So going to downloads.mariadb.org. Let's hope it opens up the right page. Right, you can either download version 10 or version 5, your choice. I've already downloaded version 5.5. I think it was 43. So I'm not going to download it again, but just to show you where to download the MariaDB from. Now you can either download MySQL or Postgres or Oracle, and there's a free edition of Microsoft SQL Server called Microsoft SQL Server Express as well. And I'm sure the performance of Microsoft SQL Server won't be any less than other databases, but because I haven't personally tested it, and will I recommend it? Well, no, for the reason, if at some point you have to switch from your Windows-based installation to a Linux-based, in case if you have installed your database on Microsoft SQL Server, then you have to convert your database from Microsoft SQL Server to the other database, say for example MySQL or MariaDB, that is available on Linux platform. But in case if you're using a compatible database like I'm using MariaDB, then you don't have to. It's just transferring the site to a Linux server and everything will be up and running in no time. The other reasons for me choosing MariaDB over MySQL is, number one, as the Moodle developers tested the Moodle with both MySQL and MariaDB, MariaDB did perform a bit better as compared to MySQL. Secondly, it's a drop-in replacement. So if you are running your database in MySQL already, you can just change your database from MySQL to MariaDB, and you don't have to make any change in database. So it's a drop-in replacement. Third thing, as I installed during the installation visit, I couldn't find anywhere where I can give a path to my database installation. While this may not be very crucial to every installation, but it's a good thing if you get liberty of choosing where to install your application. And if you see my blog post, I did mention there that if you are setting up one box server, then it's always recommended to keep your database on a separate drive, ideally SSD. So in case of MySQL, I could have made changes going into MySQL configuration file by giving a different path, but I would like these things to be at the time of installation. And the third thing being, I have tested Moodle on Windows Server using MySQL and MariaDB. While MySQL database was taking like 400 MB of RAM, MariaDB was taking like 100 MB or even less. So that's why my preferred platform of database. So your choice to download either version 10 or 5, because I've already downloaded my database, so I'm just going to start installation. Going to my downloads and click MariaDB 5.5.43, and it's a 64-bit version. Click next, and I'm going to keep the defaults here, and you see here it's as well giving me a location to install, while MySQL latest version wasn't giving this option. Click next, and I'm going to give a password to a root. And I don't have to stress on the importance of a secure password here. And as well, click use UTF-8 as a default server character set. Click next, and TCP port 336, unless you are going to use some other port for your database, you can specify here, but I'm going to keep the defaults. And the buffer pool size you can change depending on how much RAM your server has, but I'm going to keep the defaults here. You can always change this later on. Click next, and I'm not going to enable a feedback plugin. Click next and click install. And as an installation near student, you'll find a Hey SQL icon. This is simply GUI management tool for your database. Alternatively, because now your PHP is running already, you can use php.ini, downloading it from website php.ini, which is another GUI tool for managing databases. But I'm going to use Hey SQL. So clicking Hey SQL and going to create new. Let's click user here. I'm going to give password and click open. And now I'm going to define a new database here. Click user, create new, create database, and let's name it Moodle. Click OK, and I'm going to create a new user. Add Moodle user, give a password, Moodle admin 3, and add object as Moodle. Click OK, give all permissions and click save. Click close, and now I'm ready to set up my Moodle. I've already downloaded the Moodle package, and just as a reminder, you're going to download the Moodle core files, not the Windows installer package. So double clicking it, I've got my Moodle folder here. I'm going to cut this and going to paste this in my www root folder. paste here, and meanwhile my folder gets copied there. I'm going to come to my init pub and going to create a folder Moodle data here. Remember, this Moodle data folder is out of my www folder, and this is a folder that is open to public, means publicly accessible. So you are not going to keep your Moodle data folder inside your www folder. So anything you keep inside www folder is publicly accessible. So that's why I've kept Moodle data folder outside, or you can keep Moodle data folder anywhere. It doesn't have to be, but because it's a part of my Moodle installation, so just for management purposes, I'm going to keep it inside my init pub folder. Now I'm going to give permissions to this folder as well. Going to properties, security, edit. I'm going to add the same user, user. So essentially it's the same user that I have and given permissions to my PHP temp files folder. So clicking OK and give modify permission. Click OK and click OK once again. Now I am ready for my Moodle installation. Just to test my PHP once again that everything is working as it should, click localhost and my PHP is working fine, good enough. Now if you remember, within my wroot folder I have placed my Moodle folder, so it will be /Moodle. Fingers crossed everything should start running, and it is. Click next, and now I'm going to give path, Moodle directory, that's fine, and data directory, that's fine. If you remember, I have kept my data directory, the Moodle data directory, inside my internet pub folder. So the path is /init pub /Moodle data, /, and it's showing the same path. Click next, and because I'm using MariaDB, so click MariaDB, click next. Now at this point I have to give my details about database in order to proceed installation, but my PHP must have the MySQLi extension enabled, so therefore I'm going to show you how to enable extensions in PHP. So going back to my Google Drive PHP folder, PHP 56, and opening my php.ini file, right click, open with Notepad, and I'm going to find extension here, MySQLi. So Control F for find extension is equal to php_MySQLi. Find next, and I must have done something. Extension TNSI1. Yep, my SQL extension. So all I have to do is remove the semicolon in order to enable this extension. File save, and let's see if it works. My database name, if you remember, we've kept it Moodle mdl_usr and Moodle 123. I've got database. Click next. Click continue. Now it's showing me some required extensions and some optional extensions. So I can go back to my php.ini file and start enabling the extensions. So PHP extensions CURL and GD are required. Therefore, going back to my PHP file and going to enable CURL and GD Let's hope there isn't any other GT. And let me open other extensions that are optional as well, like OpenSSL, XML, RPC, INTL. Remember, the only thing I'm doing is removing the semicolons to enable these extensions in PHP. And I'm going to leave OpCache for the moment because I'm going to show you later on how to enable and set up OpCache properly for IIS. And OpCache is a very recommended extension. It will make your Moodle run twice as fast and consuming half the memory. So going to save this, click refresh. Let's see, everything works fine. No, I think I might have to restart the web server. So click here once again, F5. Fine. There is one more extension I may have to enable, MB string, although it's not required but it's recommended, so I'm going to enable every possible extension that I can. Save the file, restart web server, click refresh. Fine, we are good to go. Click continue. Okay, it looks like it has completed the setup, and it did. Just let me have a quick look that it has completed everything required. That's fine. I'm going to click continue and give a password here. Update profile. Oh, email address says some. And my Moodle is up and running. Now I'm going to show you how you enable OpCache extension, which is a very recommended extension in PHP. So I'm going to go to Google, and type here OpCache Moodle. Let's see if we've got the latest documents so far. The latest documents I could find is 29, or Google could find. Now we go for 3 as well because I'm using version 3. So clicking on 3. And this is a very recommended document if you are setting up OpCache on your server. And all the settings are given here. These first 4 settings you will be able to find already in php.ini file. But these other settings, they are tested by Moodle developers. There are further settings for the extension which you won't be able to find within the php.ini file, so you have to type them manually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first enable my extension by typing zend_extension php opcache.tl in my php.ini file. So going to the end, control end, and I'm going to start typing here. Control C, Control V. Now just before saving, let me show you what different it makes enabling the extension. So I'm going to site admin, going to development, debugging, and click performance info here. Click save. And it's going to show me how many seconds it's taking to render the page and how much RAM it's taking at the moment. I'm going to show you or get you confirmed that our OpCache extension is not enabled. So going to environment, and it's showing that OpCache is not yet enabled. So now I'm going to click my php.ini and click save. And if I refresh this page, let's see if I've enabled the extension without restarting the server. No, it hasn't. So let me restart the server and doing once again, refreshing. Right, now I'm going to provide further settings. So going to my OpCache, and then I'm going to copy everything as written here and going to paste it in my php.ini file. Now if you are using Moodle version 2.9 or less, then the maximum accepted files value is around 4000. But if you are using Moodle version 3.0 or higher, because the number of files have increased, so as per Moodle give the value of 8000 here. I'm going to keep rest of the settings as they are, and if something is not working, there are other settings here. Do read this document because this is written by Moodle developers and OpCache extension is thoroughly tested by them. So I'm going to save my document here, going to restart my server, and then going back to my Moodle. Now with my extension enabled and set up, now I'm going to see what different it makes to my Moodle rendering and memory it takes. So going to my Moodle, press refresh once again, and if I see my Moodle now, it took 0.3 seconds and 6.4 MB as compared to it was taking like 45 MB. So you can see the performance different by enabling OpCache, and I will definitely recommend OpCache in your Moodle for performance purposes.